always a pleasure to collaborate with Filmforum, my personal favorite organization in town, and thank you to 2220 for hosting tonight. What an amazing venue as well. So La Ola is an organization that has been working in North America for around 8 years now, and what we do is we promote the most avant-garde, innovative, independent cinema from Spain. Tonight we have a filmmaker invited that is actually from Venezuela, but is based in Barcelona. I've been following and admiring her work for many, many years. The first time I had the opportunity of seeing one of her pieces, it was actually at the S8 Film Festival. And so it's very special for me to introduce her and her work to you guys tonight. So thanks to USC, thank you Nora. We have tonight here with us Valentina Alvarado Matos.
I'll be quick because I prefer that you watch the films and then we can talk a little bit about. Just to make context, I'm presenting a selection of films that I made between 2014 until last year, 2022. Mostly filming 16mm Super 8, and most of them we're going to see the digital version. Well, I'm very happy to be here, and I just want to wish a good projection, and then we can talk a little bit more. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot. The last film is a double 16mm projection, and there are some text written in Spanish, and there are no translations, so we're going to just notice that the text that is written, we will talk a little bit at the beginning of the Q&A about those phrases, so you can have imagination. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Valentina. That was beautiful. Thank you to Mark Toscano, our projectionist tonight. And applause for him. And thank you to Jorge as well, who is helping Mark tonight as well. Thank you. Thank you. So, Valentina, we're going to start talking about this very last piece that we watched. It was a double projection in 16mm. And this piece was created during an artist residency in Canada, thanks to Festival S8. And like we were talking about during the introduction, there's like some quotes in the film that we decided to not translate because it was so beautiful to do the analogic projection, and we didn't want to intervene into it. But Valentina, now you have a chance of talking to us about these texts and also the process of creating this beautiful piece.
Well, thank you for the projection team back there. Yes, I mean, there are some like play words that it's normally constant in my work. There are some translation, maybe you can correct me, but there is the first one that is, "Se puede incendiar el hielo, can the ice set on fire or be on fire?" Then there's another one line of that it's se puede mirar la geografía a través de las ventanillas de los aviones. That could be as if the geography can be embodied through the window panes or something like that. I was invited by this residency in Canada to do a project, and I applied with a project related in a short way of explaining. It was the relation between myself in a really snowy place and how I relate with the snow, that I don't have any relation because I was born in a place that is all the time winter. And it was sort of an exotization of in a certain point of the snow, and how I was, during those 2 months, how I was playing with the snow and with these exercises with color. most of the piece was in the first time I wanted to go outside and do these painting exercises outdoor. But when I arrived, it was almost impossible. I mean, there was a lot of ice, and I was by myself. So I started to create these exercises, like more indoors exercises, and to construct a dialogue between my residency indoors and then some outdoor explorations, no? And well, there's a lot of fire in the piece, but like miniature fire with these small exercises that I was doing home. So it was like I was trying to put fire into the landscape, but it was from the postcards that I was collecting. And for me, it's always it's a constant in my work that I film the landscape, but then I take this landscape into my studio inner life, where I create with papers and with different materials. So this was this was fun for me to close with the most not tropical piece today, because there's a lot of white, and watching the whole program today, there was a lot of green. So for me, it was, yes, it's a special piece, because I'm always talking about a landscape that I know, and here I was like taking the landscape that I know into this snowy landscape. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That makes total sense. And talking about landscape and your exoticization of the snow, territory and migrations are definitely very strong topics into your work, which from the point of view of Eleola and a lot of the people that are here who are part of the diaspora, or we're like immigrants, I feel like we feel deeply connected in a very emotional way in that sense with your work. And would you like to elaborate more on that?
Yes, I started to film mostly when I arrived in Spain in 2014. Before that, I worked a lot with collage, as you can see, and also with ceramics. I started to do ceramics and film in the same time, that we can talk about a little bit later. But yes, in the moment I started to film, I was starting to film. I bought a Super 8 camera, and I made like my first travel to visit my family in Venezuela from Barcelona, and I started to record and to film sound landscapes and the landscape that I was visiting. And yes, I'm always talking about my place of origin in the films and the short films I made, from a absolutely personal autobiographical approach. But there was a piece where you can see a lot of archives, and I think it was the last digital piece, that it's more related. I'm working now in a project related to travel writing. So yes, landscape is always like a constant part of my work, and yes, I'm always trying to make like a bridge between Barcelona. Most of the waves and the seas that I film are in Barcelona, but I like to combine and to confuse maybe, is that an ocean, is that a sea from Venezuela or from Barcelona, and to maybe to tejer those bridges between the landscape that now I'm living.
And speaking about tejer weaving, you interconnect in your films many other forms of art, like you were mentioning before, collage and ceramics and painting. So I really, really want to know more about your process. How do you get to incorporate these objects into your films? What's your daily life in the studio to come out with these concepts and ideas and interconnect them all?
Yes, it was good to see today. For me, also surprising, because the third one, it's called Tropical Desvaído. It was my first Super 8 that I made. So there's a man opening a painting. It's my father, and he's a painter. And I saw in that piece some papers that I used in the last film I create. So normally I try to recycle a lot of the material that I have in my studio, and I can use, I don't know, I really, sorry about my, I'm thinking in Spanish, so it's going to.
Let's take some time.
No,
speak.
No, I mean, like, I think in terms of collage, when I do films, I started to do films like just 8 years ago. So for me, film is part of a medium that I work and I get related with. Also with ceramics, there's something about time that I really like with film celluloid and with ceramics, like a sort of waiting in the process. I don't know, with ceramics, I have to go to the kiln. With celluloid, there's a lab, like there are some phases that I have to be waiting, and there's a chance of good or bad, like something magical with both mediums that I really like and that are really related with matter and with tactile forms of creating. So then, I don't know, my processes are really organic in terms of broken pieces and recompositions. And yes, normally now, or at least in the last 5 years, what I do in my studio, I'm always thinking in terms of putting them back into the scene that I film. For example, if I create ceramic pieces, I don't feel myself as a ceramics artist, but I try to think about the matter and the clay as a possibility to be filmed. No, like the body of the matter is something that I'm really curious about, and the hand entering in the scene is always something that really, yes, I get related because I work with that. And like the officio, the craft of the, I don't know, the do and the work with the hands is something that also I like to film and I like to talk about.
And I also wanted to ask you, there are a couple of pieces that we watched tonight that are correspondences with Nasli Dinso. There are letters that you were sending to each other. Those pieces are like quite different than the rest of your body of work. You're like more talkative in them since it's a letter. And I wanted to ask you how that collaboration started and how it worked for you. I don't know if you guys know the work of Nasli. She's a filmmaker that was also based in Los Angeles, not anymore. But yeah, it's definitely a connection you have with the United States.
Yes, it was like an invitation from an institution in Spain called Collage Encendida. In the COVID, in the pandemic, they invited some artists to do correspondence and to dialogue through letters. So I was with Nasli. That for me had the sense, because we were both people outside their place of origin and talking, I don't know if the same subject, but it was not like a disaster in order to, okay, these two people are making dialogue. And for me, it was, well, like carta en blanco, like a blank letter. And the first video, Nasli was the first who sent me a video, and I think it was in the middle of the Black Lives Matter. Nasli sent me like it was a letter of Black Lives Matter's manifestation, protest going in front of the house that Nasli was living. And at the beginning, there's like a long black part of the movie that you can hear, like also a protest that was happening in Barcelona. So it was like a really organic. At the first moment, Nasli sent me a letter, and then I answered back, and it was like, well, for me, a really pleasure moment to film, because it was in the middle of the COVID, so it was like I don't know, a gift for me.
Yeah, definitely a gift to get creative and communicating.
Yeah. But now I see, and yes, it's different from the rest. I don't know if it's because it was a commission. I'm not used to commission. I don't get any, not much commission work. But it was like a really, specific timing, duration, and yes, like a dialogue with someone else. So it's quite different from the rest.
Not that different. You still have your like common elements, but yeah, there is some sort of like
maybe like a more narrative structure or
somehow. And I think I'm gonna open to the audience. Like, do we have any questions in the room? Any curiosities? Something that you want to share with Valentina tonight?
I want to hear a little bit about the process. There's something really interesting about how you use the paint. And one that really stood out that was fun to see and to watch was when you have the running film and then paint over that. So I would love to just hear about how the technique of the craft and how it does that. And you do that painting in particular, you want to like elaborate on a larger scale. But that one in particular was really.
You mean the Super 8 or which one?
Yeah, the ocean and then
Sí.
El mar vino la orilla.
Well, I think I like, and in that sense, comes out like my visual artist side in order to put things in front of the lens, no? And it's like an alteration of the things that I'm filming, that in that case was the sea. So formally it was really easy, like a tripod with a glass, with a video, and I was like playing in front of the landscape and filming from the other part. And that was like a first exercise that gives me the idea for the Canada film, the two projections that I always play. I mean, like I will love in a future and with budget, like to do maybe a larger scale of that kind of exercises, like altering the landscape in the back and maybe in the front of the camera. I think it's, well, I like this tram de oil, like I don't know how I don't know how to
There's a word for that in English, right?
like when you does anybody know how to say it? Well, in
Optical illusion. Yeah.
there's once a friend that its name is Esperanza Collado, like a Spanish artist friend. She told me that there's something about like magician tricks with these glass exercises. And I like that, I don't know, like to think about how was it made or I don't know.
Magicians, they do a lot of things with their hands too. So I see that connection. Any more questions? Over here.
I have a question about your writing. That you know, whether the narration is something that you write. Do you have like a writing practice, or like how that enters into just the films that you make? Like when in the process? 'Cause I think they're lovely.
Thank you. In that case, I really organic. Sometimes, mostly I film, and then I mean the bibliography that is with me during my processes. I normally take notes, and then I film, and then after that I create like a script after watching the images, and then I like to. Now I'm really obsessed with a book I'm reading about like vocal sounds and vocal, not only just from vocals, from vocal, like mouth in Spanish, like vocales and vocales. And I normally like to play with the words and as images. Once a programmer told me that you're going to have a lot of problems when translating your pieces, because I don't know, maybe the part of the kid that is saying hola, and it's like a play of the way that is all and hello. Yes, I don't know. Yes, but normally I do that. Like yes, it's like a collage after looking at the images, and sometimes like the bibliography and the books I'm reading interweave with that.
We have another question over there. I thought you were raising your hand.
You were kind of related to that. I was curious to know more about it. But I mean, kind of building on that, like that also translates to the soundscape you build, like vocally, how you use words, but also that connects to the sound. The sound.
Soundscapes.
Yeah.
Well, the field recordings, and normally, most of the sound that I use was made from the trips I haven't been in Venezuela in a long time, but the two trips that I made, I create like a lot of like a sound that, and I normally work with that, and yes.
So it comes after.
See, it comes after. It comes after, yes. Some of them were like Foley's like projects. I mean, like, I'm not an expert, and normally I work with my partner who I share a studio with, and we work together with the sound in that sense of landscape and Foley and the voice also.
I like this idea that you mentioned that you also work with sound as a collage, that you understand all these games that you're doing with words and the combination with the soundscape as a collage. This is a continuation of what you're doing in the image in that sense.
Adding about that, when this programmer told me about the translation of the text, I was, at the beginning, I was a little bit, oh yes, but then I like to think also as the voice of a sound, not just like the text and the meaning, but as a play of the sound and like as a vocal sound. So in that case, I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Do you have any other questions for me?
I wanted to ask about the process of like putting both projections together in the last piece. Do you let them randomize, or do you have like an idea of what you want in each one of them?
No, I mean like they were built thinking about dual channel. So when I create like the work copy, I was thinking in terms of this dualism of stops. And sometimes when a projection starts a little bit first at the beginning, or if the projector is slower, things happen and random lights, but slightly different. Like they were thinking to, yes, I create them and I call the negative, and then it wasn't random.
I know you talked about the process of making it in hands, but can you say more about the hands entering like the scene and like what happens there, or like there are hands in every movie, so I mean like talk a little bit more about hands.
Yes, I finished a book on the plane from a Chilean philosopher called Lo que la mano da, what the hands gives, and talks a lot about the gesture of the hand, but to think about a hand that not just do stuff, but that think. No, and that phrase was like really important in my processes, and it was like a eureka moment. But yes, I like to, I don't know, what I do is with the hands and the clay, the paper, and the things that we do as artists and as cookers, as everything, as caretakers, whatever we are doing is atravesado is like through the hands and the gesture. I don't know, this tactile form of doing with celluloid is also huella dactilar.
Fingerprints.
It's really, for me, related the clay and the celluloid with fingerprints and with this sense of touching, no? And also the work on Wednesday we're going to show Arroja la Tierra, or Tuesday, that it's also a piece that it's about work, but it's about work with clay. So it's always like this amasado, like the clay. See.
No, thank you for the movies. I had a mini question about so I can see the geography means a lot on the movies, and I wanted to know a little bit more about that. What does it mean and how it influences you?
Well, as in the version about Rocio, I think it's a thing of belongingness. I mean, like all many people that go through a displacement from one place to another, at least me. Yeah, my relationship with geography, I think it has to be with changing the place that I was growing and going to another place, and like an obsession of talking about a place that I don't live anymore, but I have a lot of affection people that lives there. But also like a notion of landscape, not just of belonging, no? The landscape itself and territory.
Well, I think with this we can wrap up the night. Thank you so much, Valentina. It was really
Thank you so much.